We work with a lot of young people that have, for example, cleft and other craniofacial condition. They don't want to be called a cleft kid. They want to be a young person, a kid, whatever, with a cleft lip or a cleft palate.
And we help them go through workshop activities that emphasize how to meet someone new who seems so different, but to look for the ways that we are alike.
Thank you for joining me, Rita and Juliet. We wanted to talk about an upcoming important day. It's International Day of Persons with Disability. This is observed and promoted by the UN, and it has been since 1992. And I thought it would be a great excuse for us to get together and talk a little bit about what you're doing. We want to know who you are and what you do within ConnectMed International. So Rita, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. My name is Rita Albert, and I'm the executive director and legal counsel for ConnectMed. And it really is, I think we're a fitting group to interview today for International Disability Day because our organization really does focus on improving the quality of life and facilitating access to resources for young people with all kinds of disabilities.
Hi, I am Juliet Tarikian. I have been with ConnectMed for a couple of years in a community outreach role. And I facilitate our new partnerships and outreach to new donors and helping to promote our various community events and services. Really popular series of events and programs we have is Camp Cosmos. And this is a program that focuses on psychosocial benefits and services for medically complex children. And we provide access to healthcare providers and fun activities outside of the clinical setting that they are used to experiencing in the hospital by organizing various events throughout San Diego County for them to come with their families. And we have therapeutic activities that are led by various experts in their field to do fun crafts and arts and theater group games and outdoor physical activities and get them into a fun environment.
But I think a really important component of our Camp Cosmos programs is, first of all, they really are year-round, multiple times a year. So they provide us a source of kind of consistent, reliable support and community for the young people and their families that we serve. In addition, we always take steps to make sure that their healthcare providers or healthcare providers in general are involved as activity leaders or just as volunteers. So that way these young people and their families can help feel more comfortable and build more trust with these type of people because they, for better or worse, spend a lot more time than the average person in the healthcare world. One other aspect about these camp programs is that they're both in person and online. So in person, when they take place here in San Diego, we very much involve the team and volunteers, primarily from Rady's Cleft and Craniofacial Clinic and other Rady groups, because Rady is a primary source of pediatric care here in San Diego. And so they get involved sometimes in the planning and definitely in the implementation of our events. And yes, in general, Rady's teams will follow the patients that we serve from sometimes before birth all the way through the age of 25 because as you may know, medically complex youth with disabilities, I mean, their conditions tend to be ongoing and chronic. So they need support and care throughout their entire childhoods. And then I should say for our online programs, those are a little bit different because we have people that participate from all over the US, but we always try to take steps to make sure that we have at least a therapist, a social worker, a speech therapist, usually an educator, a couple of, you know, surgeons or fellows or residents, somebody from the medical field, nurses, so they have exposure to the individuals that way as well, in case there are any questions they need to ask.
You've used the language and you've said medically complex and also with disabilities. And I think that there's a little bit of hesitation in people, not just nowadays, I think in general, but especially nowadays. What are some ways that people can talk about this group that you serve? I know that if you go online and you look up disabilities, they talk about having a functional impairment, whether that's an intellect or a visual challenge or a sensory issue, right? There's lots of different disabilities out there. Could you give us some language that maybe is helpful to those of us who aren't always around this community, who don't know how they want to be interacted with or talked about?
I've learned a lot as well about the significance of the term disability. And you're right, it really relates to any kind of impairment or development that affects an individual's ability to, quote unquote, normally engage in society, right? So I think that term has really expanded in the last few years to move beyond just like the physical, visible differences to the non-visible differences, like, those that affect us, for example, behavior or mental development. I think that across the board, though, I think an important way to define or talk about these people is just like you did. You don't want to necessarily want to say a disabled person. You want to say a person with a disability. And that's a very, fine nuance, but based on people that I've spoken with, it makes a difference. We work with a lot of young people that have, for example, cleft and other craniofacial condition. They don't want to be called a cleft kid. They want to be a young person, a kid, whatever, with a cleft lip or a cleft palate.
One of the ways that we help to broaden this awareness and educate and help educate about the ever-changing language that's happening is through our partnership with the Girl Scouts of San Diego. ConnectMed leads their program for inclusivity and ability awareness and helping young Girl Scouts. We do this for groups of 100 at a time, help them to earn their patch about inclusivity and ability awareness and talking about other youth and their abilities versus focusing on just disabilities. And we help them go through workshop activities that emphasize how to meet someone new who seems so different, but to look for the ways that we are alike. And it's a really fun annual activity that we do every year, and we're the only program in San Diego that is providing this.
For example, the activities that I've led, we try to get the girls to identify the things that they can do or the abilities they have in common. But what ends up happening, because they know that we're there to talk about, disabilities, they start to identify what disabilities they have in common. And it's like almost like I have dyslexia. Oh, I have dyslexia. Oh yeah, I have dyslexia. It's really it's really funny, and it's a great thing because it's almost becomes like not necessarily a positive or negative thing, but it's just another way that they kind of come together.
That it brings them closer to like, you're not outside of the norm. You're not one of us. Like, we have a lot of these things in common. What a beautiful experience to kind of come out of that. That's awesome.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of getting involved with nonprofits and connecting, whether it's volunteering or donating, or how people can engage around a group like ConnectMed?
We do a variety of different fundraising campaigns throughout the year that are accessible through our website on connectmed.org. And some of those are special fun events and fundraising programs through that are focused on individual events or initiatives or scholarships, fellowships, and education, as well for training healthcare providers in other underserved communities, which is an emphasis on what we do, or a big part of what we do. And then the other way to help out is to volunteer. All of these events that we've talked about are free for these families, for the patients, their siblings, their family members. And so we rely on volunteers to come and do as much or as little as they can. These Camp Cosmos participants are also getting improved self-esteem and confidence that they're not getting anywhere else. And they are able to celebrate their differences by not feeling different for the day because they're around others that can relate to them and have a similar diagnosis or maybe even the same diagnosis. And so that is a rare opportunity for them. And we're able to provide that frequently throughout the year, almost monthly at this point, for dozens of families at a time. And in addition to that, we've added our horse camp programs too. So they have the unique opportunity to interact not just with other children, but to form bonds with the horses, the animals, and the therapists that are leading those camps as well.
At the end of the day, it's people say, oh, most important thing is your health. The most important thing is your health. And I feel like we don't really realize that until we have moments, right, where we don't feel like our best selves for whatever reason. And that always hits me when I spend some time with these young people, because that is their norm, like medical challenges, having to go in for like ongoing medical visits, planning the next surgery, whatever that might be, that is their actual norm. And the thing that struck me about them the most is their incredible resilience. I don't want to make them sound like some superheroes, because I think they hate it when they're spoken about like that, but they are incredibly resilient, especially say compared to some of my kids who don't have these challenges and fall apart. But I think that's why this is important, because the sort of like their daily journey as being medically challenged should be, I think it should be recognized and it should be supported as much as possible.
Well, thank you both so much for having this chat with me.
Thank you.